Kanye West's personal assistant for the past few years. I've seen him in ways that the public rarely does. The glitz, the glamour, the controversy, all of that is part of the persona. But behind the scenes, there's a man who is constantly struggling with what he has gained and what he's lost. I'm not just talking about fame. No, I'm talking about the most important thing in anyone's life, family. The story I'm about to share with you isn't one you'll hear in interviews or read about in tabloids. It's a story that's personal and raw, one that will change how you view success and the choices we make in life. Kanye, for all his success, was never just about the music or the clothes. He was always striving for something more, something deeper. But what happens when you want it all and then realize you've already lost everything that matters? I remember the day he sat me down, looking more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. That was the moment when everything shifted in his mind. It was a decision that would haunt him for years to come and one he would regret. But before I dive into that moment, let me give you some context. Kanye West, as everyone knows, is a genius. His music has shaped culture, and his name is synonymous with success. But success comes with a price, and it wasn't until much later that Kanye realized just how high that price was. He was constantly in the studio, producing hit after hit, making headlines, always pushing boundaries. But behind the scenes, his personal life was starting to unravel. His relationships with his family began to feel distant, and the person he loved most in the world, his wife, was becoming a stranger. One day, Kanye came into the office, eyes red from lack of sleep and a mind clearly overrun with thoughts. He asked to meet, and we sat across from each other at his office desk, the weight of the world seemingly on his shoulders. "I think I've made a huge mistake," he said, breaking the silence. I wasn't sure if he was referring to his latest fashion line or something bigger. But as he continued, I realized he was talking about something far more important than work. He spoke of the early days, the hunger to make a name for himself in the industry, to rise above the critics, to be recognized not just for his talent but for his vision, his impact. And for a while, it worked. Kanye became the embodiment of success, fame, wealth, accolades, all of it within his grasp. But at what cost? You know what it's like, right? The pressure. The constant need to be relevant, to stay on top, to keep pushing the limits. But in the process, I lost sight of what really mattered, Kanye said, his eyes clouded with regret. I could feel the weight of his words. He wasn't just talking about a career choice, he was talking about his family, his wife, his children. The very people who had been there for him when no one else was. I was always so focused on creating, on building my empire, that I didn't stop to think about the people who loved me the most. The ones who needed me the most. His voice broke slightly, a vulnerability I'd never heard before. Kanye wasn't just a celebrity, he was a father, a husband, and a son. But the pressure of his career had taken precedence over his personal life. And when he realized it, it was almost too late. He paused, looking out the window as if searching for the right words. "I thought I could have it all," Kanye admitted, his voice almost a whisper. But the truth is, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how many awards you win. If you lose the ones you love, then what's it all for? There was a long silence after that. He didn't need to say more, I could see the pain in his eyes. And I could see the regret that weighed on his shoulders. In that moment, Kanye realized that success was never going to be enough to fill the void left by lost time. Fame could never replace the love and connection that had once been so strong in his life. I thought about the times when I had watched him on stage, larger than life, commanding the room, and I couldn't help but wonder how many others felt the same way. How many people had made sacrifices for success, only to realize too late that it wasn't worth it? Kanye sat there for a moment, processing his thoughts. The quiet hum of the office filled the space between us as I waited for him to continue. And then, he opened up. "I chose this," he said, his voice low, as though admitting guilt. "I chose fame over family. I thought it was the only way to prove my worth, to get what I wanted. He spoke of the early days, the hunger to make a name for himself in the industry, to rise above the critics, to be recognized not just for his talent but for his vision, his impact. And for a while, it worked. Kanye became the embodiment of success, fame, wealth, accolades, all of it within his grasp. But at what cost? You know what it's like, right? The pressure. The constant need to be relevant, to stay on top, to keep pushing the limits. But in the process, I lost sight of what really mattered, Kanye said, his eyes clouded with regret. I could feel the weight of his words. He wasn't just talking about a career choice, he was talking about his family, his wife, his children. The very people who had been there for him when no one else was. I was always so focused on creating, on building my empire, that I didn't stop to think about the people who loved me the most. The ones who needed me the most. His voice broke slightly, a vulnerability I'd never heard before. Kanye wasn't just a celebrity, he was a father, a husband, and a son. But the pressure of his career had taken precedence over his personal life. And when he realized it, it was almost too late. He paused, looking out the window as if searching for the right words. I thought I could have it all, Kanye admitted, his voice almost a whisper. But the truth is, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how many awards you win. If you lose the ones you love, then what's it all for? There was a long silence after that. He didn't need to say more, I could see the pain in his eyes. And I could see the regret that weighed on his shoulders. In that moment, Kanye realized that success was never going to be enough to fill the void left by lost time. Fame could never replace the love and connection that had once been so strong in his life. He told me about the strain his marriage had been under, how the constant traveling, the late nights in the studio, the never-ending press, had left him disconnected from the very people he had built his life around. He described how he and his wife had barely seen each other, how even when they were in the same room, there was a distance between them that felt impossible to bridge. I thought that if I just kept pushing, kept working, it would all pay off, Kanye said. But I've realized that no amount of money or success is worth losing the love I have at home. I could see that this realization was one of the hardest things he'd ever had to face. Here was a man who had everything: fame, wealth, and influence, but it was all coming at the cost of the most important thing in his life, his family. The conversation shifted then, from one of regret to one of hope. Kanye spoke of his desire to fix things, to make amends with those he had neglected. He wasn't sure how to do it yet, but he knew he had to try. It was like a light bulb had gone off in his mind, and for the first time in a long time, I saw him truly committed to something other than his career. I'm going to fix this, Kanye said, his voice firm. I don't know how long it'll take, but I'm going to put my family first. And so began the journey to repair the damage. It wasn't an easy path, and there were days when it felt like things were only getting worse. Kanye would step away from the studio, only to find that the world of entertainment wasn't going to slow down for him. The pressure of maintaining his public image, of staying relevant, was always there, lurking in the background. But Kanye's commitment to his family became his guiding force. He took time off from the studio to be there for his wife and children. He started having dinner with them every night, even when he was exhausted, even when there were other things he felt he should be doing. He made it a point to attend family events, to show up for his children's birthdays and milestones, and to be present in a way he had never been before. But the sacrifices didn't end there. Kanye had to confront the challenges of balancing his career with his personal life. The entertainment industry is relentless, and even someone as powerful as Kanye West wasn't immune to its pressures. There were meetings to attend, albums to finish, fashion lines to launch. But every time he felt pulled away from his family, he reminded himself of what was truly important. I had to learn how to say no, Kanye admitted to me one day, as we sat in his office. I had to learn that I can't be everywhere, doing everything. I have to take a step back and prioritize. And that's exactly what he did. Kanye began turning down certain gigs, saying no to projects that would take him away from home for weeks at a time. It wasn't easy. There were moments when he felt like he was letting people down, when he felt the pressure of the industry closing in. But with each decision, he felt more and more at peace with the path he was choosing. But even with his best efforts, the road to reconciliation wasn't without its bumps. There were still moments when Kanye felt torn between his two worlds, the world of fame and the world of family. He would be on the phone with a business partner, discussing his next big move, only to hear his child calling for him from the other room. "I would have to step away from the call," Kanye said, "and that was hard for me. I thought about all the people who needed me in the industry, and I didn't want to disappoint anyone. But at the same time, I realized that I didn't want to disappoint my kids." The more Kanye immersed himself in his family life, the more he understood the sacrifices they had made for him. He saw how his wife had carried the weight of their relationship, how she had supported him even when he was absent. And it wasn't just her. His children had grown up in a world where their father was always in the spotlight, and he began to recognize just how much they needed him, too. There were days when it felt like nothing was going to change, when the pressure of both worlds threatened to overwhelm him. But each small victory, each moment of connection with his family, brought him closer to the man he wanted to be. "I'm learning," Kanye said with a tired but content smile one evening after dinner with his family. "I'm learning how to be present. And I'm learning that no amount of fame or success can replace the people who love me." And in that moment, I saw the transformation. Kanye West, the man who had once been consumed by the pursuit of fame, had finally found balance. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying, and that was enough. His journey wasn't over, but the lessons he had learned were clear. Success in life isn't about the accolades or the money you accumulate. It's about the relationships you nurture, the love you give, and the time you spend with the people who matter most. As we sat together in that quiet room, I couldn't help but feel proud of the man Kanye had become. He was still Kanye West, the artist, the visionary, the icon. But now, he was also a father, a husband, and a man who had learned the most important lesson of all, that family is worth everything. Kanye's journey to reclaim his family wasn't an easy one, but it was one of the most important decisions of his life. And in that decision, he had found a new sense of purpose, a purpose that was no longer defined by fame, but by love and connection. And as he looked toward the future, he knew that no matter what came next in his career, he would never lose sight of what mattered most. As Kanye began to settle into his new routine of balancing family life with his career, the challenges didn't slow down. If anything, they intensified. The pressure of being in the public eye, the constant media scrutiny, the need to stay relevant, it all weighed on him. But this time, something had shifted. He wasn't just chasing after the next big thing. Now, Kanye was chasing something far more important: peace. It wasn't an easy road, though. Kanye had made progress, but there were moments when the old habits returned. The late-night studio sessions would creep back into his schedule, or the tempting allure of a new project would threaten to pull him away from the life he was trying to build at home. And each time it happened, he had to make a choice. One evening, Kanye came into the office looking particularly drained. He'd been juggling an album launch, fashion commitments, and the ever-present demands of his public persona. But as he sat across from me, there was a look in his eyes that wasn't just exhaustion, it was doubt. "I don't know if I'm doing this right," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. I looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I feel like every time I think I've found a balance, something comes up that pulls me back in. I don't know if I'm doing enough for my family," he admitted. I could see the struggle in him. On one hand, Kanye was doing more for his family than he had in years. He was present, he was involved, and he was actively trying to make things right. But on the other hand, the world kept demanding more from him, and the expectations felt suffocating. Kanye had always been someone who was fiercely driven, someone who believed in pushing limits. But now, the very drive that had fueled his career was starting to become a source of conflict. He knew that if he wasn't careful, his ambitions could pull him right back into the same destructive cycle he'd been in before. "I just want to be there for them," Kanye said, running a hand through his hair. But there's this part of me that feels like if I stop, if I slow down, I'll lose everything I've worked for. And I'm scared of that. I could understand his fear. The fear of losing momentum, of falling behind in a world that never stops moving. But I also saw the growth in him. Kanye wasn't just talking about his career now. He was talking about his family, about the people who needed him. You don't have to sacrifice your career to be there for them, I said, trying to offer some reassurance. It's about making the right choices. It's about finding a way to be present without losing everything you've worked for. Kanye looked at me, a mixture of gratitude and skepticism in his eyes. I know you're right, he said quietly. But it's hard. There are days when I feel like I'm losing everything. I'm trying to be there, but I'm still not enough. I could see how deeply this was affecting him. The weight of the world on his shoulders, the pressure to be perfect, to be both an artist and a family man, was taking a toll. But I could also see that he wasn't giving up. He wasn't retreating into the familiar comfort of his fame. He was fighting for something deeper. That evening, after our conversation, Kanye took some time to think. I watched him as he reflected, alone in his thoughts, sitting by the window, looking out at the city below. The man who had once been consumed by the pursuit of fame now seemed to be in the midst of a quieter, more introspective battle. The next day, Kanye made a decision. He called a family meeting, one that had been long overdue. It wasn't just a discussion about schedules or events. It was a heart-to-heart conversation with his wife and children. Kanye shared his struggles with them, admitted his fears, and asked for their support. He told them how much they meant to him and how much he wanted to be a better man for them. The conversation was emotional. His wife, in particular, was moved. She spoke of the sacrifices she had made for him, of the years she had spent supporting his career, but also of the moments she wished he had been there with her and the children. She wasn't angry, but there was a quiet sadness in her words. "I've always supported you, Kanye," she said softly. "But there were times when I felt like I was doing this alone. Like you were so busy with your world that you didn't see how much we needed you." Kanye listened, his heart heavy with guilt. But instead of retreating, he took responsibility for his actions. He didn't make excuses. He simply acknowledged the pain he had caused. "I'm sorry," Kanye said, his voice raw with emotion. "I can't take back the time I've lost, but I'm here now. I'm going to be here for you, for the kids. I know I've messed up, but I'm going to fix it." It wasn't a magical solution, and things didn't change overnight. But that moment marked a turning point in their relationship. Kanye had opened up, acknowledged his flaws, and committed to making the necessary changes. As time passed, Kanye's focus on his family became more than just an obligation, it became a priority. He started taking weekends off, turning down high-profile events to be there for his children's soccer games, school plays, and family gatherings. Slowly but surely, he began to rebuild the connections he had neglected for so long. But it wasn't just about spending time with his family. It was about learning how to be emotionally present for them, to truly engage with their lives. Kanye began to appreciate the small moments, the laughter during family dinners, the quiet conversations at night, and the way his children's eyes lit up when he showed up for them. "I never realized how much I was missing," Kanye confessed one evening. "But now that I'm here, I wouldn't trade it for anything." Kanye still faced challenges his career was demanding, and the world still expected him to keep up. But he had learned something invaluable, that family wasn't just about being there physically, but emotionally. And with that realization, Kanye's commitment to his family grew stronger. The transformation wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy. But Kanye had found a new sense of purpose, one that wasn't rooted in the fame or accolades, but in love and connection. As I watched him grow, both as an artist and as a man, I couldn't help but feel proud of the person he was becoming. Kanye had taken responsibility for his choices, and he had learned that the most important things in life couldn't be bought or achieved, they had to be nurtured and fought for. Kanye West had found something far more valuable than fame, he had found peace. and in that peace, he had discovered the true meaning of success. As the months passed, Kanye's journey to rediscover balance continued. It wasn't always a smooth ride. There were moments of doubt, struggles with guilt, and the ever-present weight of the world's expectations. But through it all, Kanye remained determined to stay true to his new purpose, to be present for his family, to be the father and husband he knew he could be. One day, I noticed a shift in Kanye. It wasn't something he said, but something I saw in his eyes. It was a sense of peace and inner calm that had eluded him for years. He was still the driven, ambitious Kanye West, but now, that drive had a new focus. It wasn't just about conquering the world. It was about creating a legacy, not just for his career, but for his family. Kanye began to share more about his vision for the future. He spoke about his desire to leave a mark on the world, not just as an artist, but as a father, as a husband, and as a man who had learned the importance of love, commitment, and connection. I used to think that legacy was about what I could accomplish on my own, Kanye said one evening as we sat in his office. But now I see that it's about what I leave behind for the people I love. I could tell that this shift in perspective was one of the most profound changes in Kanye's life. For the first time, he wasn't just thinking about himself. He was thinking about his family, his wife, his children, and the impact he would have on them for generations to come. But despite this newfound clarity, the pressure of fame was never far behind. The demands of the industry, the constant need to stay relevant, and the never-ending cycle of work and public appearances were always waiting in the wings. It would have been easy for Kanye to slip back into the old habits, the late nights in the studio, the constant hustle to stay on top. But this time, he made a conscious decision not to let that happen. One evening, Kanye and I were sitting in his living room, watching his kids run around, laughing and playing. The noise was chaotic, but there was something beautiful about it. For the first time in a long time, Kanye seemed at peace with it all. "You know," Kanye said, looking at me with a small smile, "this is what matters." I nodded in agreement. It was moments like these, simple, yet profound, that made all the difference. Kanye had come to realize that family was the true foundation of his success. His work was important, but it wasn't everything. What mattered most was the love and connection he shared with the people who truly mattered in his life. Over time, Kanye became more involved in his children's lives. He was there for their first steps, their school events, and even the small, everyday moments that many parents take for granted. He wasn't just showing up, he was fully present, emotionally invested in their lives. He would take them on trips, spend quality time with them, and even teach them about the world in his own unique way. He would talk to them about his work, about the importance of following their passions, and about the value of family. It was clear that Kanye was trying to teach them the lessons he had learned the hard way, the lessons about balance, love, and sacrifice. But there were still challenges. The media, as always, continued to scrutinize his every move. There were times when Kanye felt torn between his public persona and his private life. The constant need to be in the spotlight, the pressure to keep producing and innovating, it was a balancing act that required constant vigilance. Yet, Kanye had learned how to navigate those pressures with grace. He didn't let the demands of the industry consume him as they once had. He learned to say no, to protect his peace, and to focus on the things that truly mattered. "It's not easy," Kanye confessed during one of our late-night conversations. "But I'm learning to protect my peace. I'm learning that I don't have to be everywhere, doing everything. I don't have to sacrifice my family for success. That's the lesson I've learned." And with that lesson, Kanye's life began to take on a new rhythm. It was a rhythm that allowed him to continue his creative work, to pursue his passions, but without sacrificing the things that mattered most. His family came first always.